Good evening, everyone. It is Wednesday, December 6th here from Florida State University campus, and I'm student meteorologist Matt Reagan.
I'm student meteorologist Tyler Van Herten. And you know, this morning, if you went outside like at 6 a.m. and woke up, you're like, it's a really warm day outside, and you might have thought the meteorologists were wrong because we said it was going to be cold today. But boy, if you went out after lunch, big time change out there.
Yeah, it's been a slow slide, and that's where we're just going to be going. This is the story of fire and ice for across the country today.
Neither of those things are likely to be happening here.
That's true. I mean, we've got fires out in California that are just devastating some of the regions there. Here, closer to home, at least in the Tallahassee area, we're talking about cold rain, annoyingly cold rain.
If you have seen like memes of Seattle, you know, they're very rainy, and it's a December day. This is classic Seattle weather. We're not really going to see a ton of rain as far as accumulations are concerned, but we basically have 100% chance of seeing rain all the way through Friday night and Saturday morning.
Yeah, and you've got more on this in your later desk, but for now we'll send it out to Michael with the overview.
Thanks, Matthew and Tyler. So we were talking about this, lots of rain ahead for these next few days, especially into Thursday and Friday. It is going to get much colder. We're not expecting to even reach 50 on Thursday and Friday. But by the weekend into next week, into final exam week, it will clear out, and we're looking at pretty nice weather conditions. Now, for our high temps today, these high temperatures occurred in the morning at around 11 o'clock this morning. We reached 71 again in Tallahassee at 11 o'clock this morning, and we've been on a steady decline, as Tyler was alluding to earlier, since 11 o'clock this morning. Right now, it is at 53 degrees. You can see where the front is on this map. 73 in Gainesville ahead of the front, and look in Montgomery behind the front. It is 41 degrees, so some really cold air. The radar will show you there is rain. Not really along the front, it's mainly behind the front. And we actually saw some snow, I think, up in the North Georgia mountains earlier this morning, and there was some sleet mixing in Atlanta. For tonight, expected to be a raw kind of night, 46 degrees, chance of showers, 50% chance, and it will get cold for tomorrow. Now let's send it back to the desk with Tyler.
Thank you, Michael. He's right. It's going to be a very raw time, an extended raw time through the rest of the week into the start of the weekend. And part of the reason for that is what we call overrunning in meteorology. We had the cold front go through the region. Right now it's situated just east of the Florida Big Bend, right near Cross City and Lake City, Florida. And being on the cold side of the cold front, we are experiencing much colder conditions, of course, but also we're in a more moist environment as far as we're seeing cloud cover and a couple of showers because that cold front hasn't moved far enough south to have us escape with some much dry air. You can see that if you look later in the show, we'll have satellite images. Places in northern Alabama will be dry. They won't see any precipitation. In fact, Huntsville has a higher expected high temperature tomorrow than we do here in Tallahassee. That is because as that cold front continues to stall just to our south, impulses of energy are going to ride up on top of that, and really with the cold air advection and the rain that will be falling the next 2 days, it will not warm up. That's why we're seeing highs mainly in the mid to upper 40s, which is cold for any time of year. It's about 20 degrees colder than average compared to where we're supposed to be for this time of year. We'll finally get out of this pattern. However, overrunning is the thing you have to thank for really kind of two very underwhelming days across North Florida and South Georgia. You're really going to have to bundle up if you want to go outside. Now let's send it back over to the wall with Matt.
Thank you, Tyler. The story today is the cool, the cold, to me, as a South Florida person, it's kind of miserable. But if you love the cold weather and you love the dreary days, and great days to get in and study for those finals next week, these are the next couple days for you. So thank you, Tyler, for kind of a breakdown of the science, and we'll be breaking that down all show long with why exactly things are happening and maybe some wintry precipitation mixed in there. I'm not going to get too ahead of myself here. Let's start with what's going on right now. 53 in Tallahassee. On campus, we just checked, it's 52, so really not too far off. The dew point, humidity is actually pretty high. So typically when you see a cold front pass, you look for that drier air, the lower dew point. We're not seeing that just yet, and that's what's going to keep it overcast, moist, and rainy throughout the next several days. Current temperatures across our local tri-state area, 53 here in town, 53 St. Mark's, 53 Carabel, 53 Appalachia. You see the trend? 53 seems like the number you want to play in lottery tonight. So check on that here, 52 in Perry. Mariana, 47. That is quite a bit further back. And this cool pocket up here, it's going to start filtering in to Leon County and our surrounding communities over the next several hours. Dew point, 42 degrees. As we see this, we see the higher dew point values off to our east, and that's where the front is. We can actually find the front, and we're going to do that later on in a lab, where we can see where the warmer air down the peninsula meets up with the cooler air here across the region. Dew points, what do they mean? Well, right now, we're sitting in a moderate phase, kind of a moderate dew point, and what does that mean? I mean, it's cold outside, so it doesn't quite feel dry. My skin isn't, you know, I'm cracking all over the place yet, but we will see the dew points drop like a rock once this reinforcing shot of cool air comes in into the 30s. So I assure you the dew point will drop once this rain does move on by. Satellite and radar. Michael looked at this earlier. We're going to look at it again because it is pretty nice out there. If you like the clouds and the rain, we haven't seen a lot of rain, so this is very beneficial, and we will likely not see much rain as we move into the cooler season with La Nina dominating the pattern, but not today. We're seeing the rain, the clouds move in, as well as the cool weather, and that will be pouring in and sticking around for the next several days. Current winds behind the front from the north and the east. Panama City, the gusty spot. It's gusty out outside our studio too. As I was walking in, it kind of hurt. 52 and breezy. That's feeling like the 40s. Tonight's forecast, though, here it is. 46 degrees. We're not going to see anything other than the 40s and the 30s for the next several days. 50% chance of rain. It's only going to cool down throughout the night with the wind still gusting 10 to 15 miles per hour. And then Thursday, well, our high. This is the high. Right here, 47 degrees is the high for tomorrow. Windy and 60% chance of rain. This is not the weather that I love, but if you like the cool weather, stay inside, cuddle up, wear your sweatpants, grab a cup of tea or coffee, and study for those finals. Our 5-day forecast looks like this. Thursday, Friday, that's the transition days. We're getting the cool weather filtered in, the rain filtered out on Saturday and Sunday. I'm actually heading out golfing Saturday morning. It'll be cold. 52 degrees is the high. Sunday, 55 the high. We're probably going to see areas around Tallahassee dip into the 20s. Not so much here in the city center. That's why we got the 34 pegged for Saturday and the 33 on Sunday. But the 20s, I mean, cold weather's here, Michael.
You know, the southeast, if you look at some of these, actually, let's look at the rainfall from this front yesterday. There was a lot of rain up in northern Mississippi and northern Alabama. They got an inch and a half of rain to almost 2 inches of rain up there. Lower down towards the south, like here in Tallahassee, again, we didn't get much rain from this front so far, but that will change. Now the temperatures, look at the cold air behind this front. 41 degrees in Montgomery, 40 in Atlanta. Want some warmer air? Go down to Central and South Florida where they are in the 70s and they actually reached in the low 80s today as highs. Now the dew points behind the front, this is an Arctic front. With those the Arctic front, you're going to get really low dew points behind the front, Arctic kind of air, but ahead of that, it's tropical, and it's in the 60s and 70s as your dew points. Now, clouds all across the southeast. The most of the rain of this front it's actually behind the front, and the clear conditions are actually down towards Central and South Florida. Again, look at this, the radar right here. You can see the rain, some rain in Tallahassee earlier today, but most of the rain is actually towards Mississippi and Alabama, and that is going to move east throughout the next few days. the water vapor shows the same story with all the moisture back towards Texas and Louisiana, and this is going to move east over the next few days. Now the winds, you can see ahead of the front, you still have those southerly winds bringing in that warm, humid air, but the front's situated right here. You can see the winds are behind the front are from the north, bringing in that cold Arctic air from Canada. And the futurecast rainfall is going to show you the rain is going to move east for these next few days. And so for tonight's forecast, 30s up towards northern and central Georgia, and 40s down towards the Panhandle. It is going to drop for the next few hours. The warmer conditions are down towards central and South Florida, with 65 in Orlando and 70s again in South Florida. For tomorrow, it is going to be cold from the Panhandle north. 51 in Tallahassee. Again, that's overdoing it, I think. We're probably not even going to reach 50 degrees, as Matt was saying just a few minutes ago. And 46 here in Montgomery. It will actually be warmer in Shreveport, I think, tomorrow than it is in Tallahassee. Now let's send it off to Matt at the lab with a look at what the weather's going to be like in the southeast. Actually, we are going to, so again, the warm conditions are actually going to be down towards South Florida, and eventually we're going to have a low pressure system move east, and that will give us more rain chances. Now let's send it off to Matt at the lab.
Didn't realize it was technical difficulty.
On now, the mic should be good. Thank you. Let's actually send it back to the wall, and we'll at least get some sort of wall graphics up here. But I assure you that we are going to be looking at some great satellite loops of this cold front moving in. Now, unfortunately, let's see if we can get this to work. But I assure you, we were going to play this game called Find the Front, and usually when we play Find the Front, we look for the areas where we have the warmer temperatures, and then we have this big temperature gradient, or a change in temperature over time, and we look for that in the cool temperatures. So we also look for a big wind shift. So ahead of a front, you'll see winds primarily out of the southeast, and behind it, primarily out of the northeast. So we're going to switch over to our wall graphics, and we're going to talk you through what is going on here across the region, and why a little bit is some of this stuff going to happen. So as we switch over to that here in just a moment, we'll be looking into seeing what the computer models say, which a lot of them are, a couple of them are showing some wintry precip trying to sneak into our counties, and a couple of them aren't. Most of them aren't, a lot of the reliable models. This will be something that will have to evolve over time. So let's switch over to our national look, and I'll just run through the current conditions because nationally we've got quite a bit of different weather things going on. And Mike will be talking about this in just a moment, but from sea to shining sea, if you will, we've got a big weather system just dominating the East Coast over here, and lots of cool air pouring in from Canada. And then on the West Coast, we have a lot of ridging. And this ridging will be causing a lot of warm and dry air and a lot of winds. We see the winds especially moving offshore this way. Those are the Santa Ana winds, and this is the time of year when we look for the potential for wildfires. Very dry conditions, very windy conditions, and I know Michael will also be talking about that very shortly here. And you know what, let's just throw it to him now. Michael, take us through a national look.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So as Matt was pointing out earlier, the eastern side of the country are now dominated with Arctic air. You can see 16 up in Minneapolis, 40 down in Atlanta. The warm spots are actually down in South Florida at 78 in Miami, and also out west with high pressure dominating the Intermountain region. You're getting that offshore wind in Southern California. You've been hearing about these wildfires for the last 2 days in Southern California. That is because of the Santa Ana winds driving these wildfires, and it's going to continue for the next few days. Now, the 24-hour temperature change, it will show the cold air behind this front, a 22-degree drop in temperature from this time yesterday in New Orleans, and 18-degree drop in Atlanta. There is a little bit warmer ahead of a clipper system up towards the northern plains, And there's going to be a reinforcing shot of cold air coming in tomorrow and into Friday. The water vapor will show you that we have the moisture associated with this cold front still situated across the southern tier of the country. And let's actually take a look at California. You can see all the dry air out there due to the Santa Ana winds. That's the reason why these wildfires are so bad at this time. The radar will show you a lot of the moisture is behind the cold front, as we've been saying these last few days. But let's take a look up at the Great Lakes. You can see the lake effect snow machine in effect affecting Buffalo, Syracuse. They are getting a lot of snow, and they will be getting a lot of snow for these next few days. Now, in terms of watches and warnings, we do have the coastal advisories down towards the Gulf Coast. We have the lake effect snow advisories up towards Buffalo and Syracuse. And we do have some fire warnings, again, for those wildfires down in Southern California. Airport delays, nothing to note there. But for tonight, cold Arctic air basically everywhere across the continental U.S. The exception is down towards Florida, where it will be in the 60s and 70s for lows, and down towards the desert Southwest and Southern California. And for tomorrow, the southern tier of the country is going to be sucked in the clouds, so it's going to be in the upper 40s and 50s as your highs. Want some warm weather? Again, your spots are in Central and South Florida, where they will be in the 80s for tomorrow. Now let's send it off to Matt again at the lab.
Hey, Michael, I'm here, and I actually, we talked to NASA, and we said we needed some satellite imagery, so they finally sent us down some awesome imagery. And unfortunately, we're losing the sun, but we get the idea. Now we can play our game of Find the Front now that we have NASA on our side with all of this cool data. A lot of cloud cover, and typically when you see a cold front, it's a lot of really vigorous storms, but we're not seeing that here. We're seeing a lot of light rain, light to moderate precipitation, and that will, some areas, change over to some sleet or some snow. We saw that, as Michael said, northern Georgia, up near the base of the Appalachian Mountains is where we saw quite a bit of sleet and transitioning over to snow. Texas, we're seeing the same thing right now. Let's go over and see what's going on the radar. We looked a lot at Tallahassee's radar. This is Mobile. So just a state over, going down I-10, we've got a lot of rain, and this is very wintry type of rain. It's light and almost flurry-like. You'll sometimes probably go outside and think it's snowing, but most likely it's not, at least not tonight or just yet, or tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow night, Saturday morning, we might see that. So a lot of rain coming our way, as we saw on the satellite. But as I was saying with Find the Front, here it is. This is a perfect representation of seeing the warm air in the red, the darker colors here on the state of Florida. Florida, pretty much I-4 south. They're not going to be participating, right now at least, in the cool weather saga, as I like to call it. But they will be parts of Tampa, north of Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater. They could see some cool temperatures even into the 40s on Monday morning. But look behind it. These green colors, the wind has shifted from the north, the green showing the cooler air mass. And you can almost take your arm and just slice it right here. Perry, Cross City, up towards Lake City and Fargo, Georgia, even all the way up to Waycross. There's your front. And it's fairly simple to find on the map. So if anybody wants to be a meteorologist, impress your friends for the day, when the cool air, the wind shift from the northeast, when that happens, say, oh, the front passed. They'll ask you, well, how do you know? And you say, oh, I know because, well, we taught you a little something here from the lab. Now, we just wanted to go over something real quick. These are the computer models. This is the GFS, Global Forecasting System, from the American model, showing that we could see some wintry precipitation in our area. It's just very hard to nail that down right now. So that'll be a nowcast thing. So stay tuned here to FSU Weather, and we'll go ahead and fine-tune this forecast for you. But right now, we will send it back on over to the wall for another look at the forecast.
Thank you, Matt. And yes, across the state, we have seen a lot of rain to go along with the cold weather, especially in the Panhandle. Right here in Tallahassee, we've seen a 10th of an inch of rain since the last 48 hours, rather. And over towards the west, we had seen much more rain as the cold fronts come through. There's really two types of fronts that we talk about with cold fronts. They're called catafronts and anafronts. And basically, the distinction between both of those, a cata front has precipitation ahead of the front, and an ana front has precipitation behind the front. That is why we do have an ana front right now, as evidenced by these rainfall totals, and that is why the next 2 days will be very rainy across North Florida and South Georgia. Can you spot the front? It's kind of easy here. It's located right about I-75 910. Because up in Jacksonville it's 57 degrees, down in Orlando it's 79 degrees. That's almost a 25-degree temperature difference in a span of about 100 miles, and that's very impressive. It's even colder off towards the west, where they really haven't seen any solar radiation today to warm us up that we saw this morning before the front came through. Current dew points represent that. You might think that these dew points are pretty low. However, they aren't as low as they seem because we have cooled off so dramatically. They're in the 40s behind the front, in the 50s and 60s ahead of the front. Another telltale sign of a front is northerly winds ahead of the front and southwesterly winds ahead of the front, and that would be indicative of some moist air along the front, and you can see that in the upper levels of the atmosphere. We have an impulsive energy moving across the western Florida panhandle that is going to mean a very rainy scenario. Most of the rain, again, is across the western Florida panhandle into the Gulf Coast region. However, that is going to transpire over towards the east later today. And temperatures, as we've been saying, are going to be very cold for the rest of the week into the weekend. So please prepare for that. Now let's send it back to the desk with Michael.
So I was telling you earlier in the national weather that we have the wildfires going on in Southern California. It's been a deteriorating situation since Monday afternoon, and we were mentioning about it in our show last night. So we want to give you an update on what's happening there right now. So we have five wildfires in the Southern California area around Los Angeles. Currently, there were evacuations in Bel Air due to the Screwball fire. Again, it's in Bel Air, and that caused the 405 freeway to temporarily shut down this morning. And UCLA, due to these wildfires, have canceled their men's basketball game against Montana that was scheduled for Wednesday night. And they also canceled classes for today. I'm not sure about for tomorrow. Now, the largest fire was the Thomas fire. That formed Monday night. We talked about it in last night's show. And it's being fueled by these Santa Ana winds. All these wildfires are being fueled by the Santa Ana winds. This offshore wind bringing in some dry, they're very fast winds, and they're dry winds with the landscape. Now, the Thomas fire is actually as larger than the city of San Francisco. So now with these wildfires, we're going to continue to monitor the situation again. It will probably worsen for these next few days. Now let's send it back to the wall with Tyler for a final look at your local forecast.
Thank you, Michael. From hot and fiery out in California to cool and dreary here in Tallahassee, it's 53 right now under a blanket of clouds with a northerly wind of just under 10 miles an hour with some higher gusts. That does produce a wind chill. And as cold as these temperatures are, they're about 20 degrees colder than they were this morning at sunrise. This might be the highest temperature we see until Sunday. Chew on that for a second. Right now, temperatures are in the 50s. However, earlier today, we did see temperatures ahead of the front, especially in southeast Big Bend, where they saw some sun today in the mid-70s. However, where the temperatures fell before sunrise, you really saw the max heat of the day was actually at midnight before the front went through. Once those northerly winds happened, it was game over for temperature rises as far as North Florida goes. And the dew points right now are fairly low, you would assume. However, because the temperatures are so cold, these dew point numbers are not that much colder than the temperature. So even though you might say it's dry outside, it doesn't really feel dry because of how cold it is. And I don't know if you've been in a very cold air mass, but you're really going to have to prepare more for temperatures and conditions that are really quite miserable because a wet cold really cuts through your skin more so than a dry cold does. Now let's look at the dew point. Again, 40 to 49 is pleasant, but that is a misnomer of all proportions because it will not feel pleasant the next 2 days. That I can guarantee you, unless you like 40s and rain, but you be in a very big minority there. Current winds right now are out of the north, bringing in that cold air. They're not too strong, so it doesn't feel that miserable yet. But hang on, because this is going to be a big roller coaster as we continue to plunge down into the 40s for the rest of the week. Satellite radar really showed when the first line of showers went through. This is through 3 hours, and here it is across the southeast Big Bend. We're really waiting for this other impulse over the western Florida Big Bend that will cause temperatures to fall off through today all the way through Saturday night. So again, through today, temperatures slowly falling with occasional on and off showers. Really pack your umbrella. And for tonight, temperatures will stay in the 40s, and they will stay in the 40s all week. The last thing I will leave you with is the 7-day forecast. And guess what? I will say that a jacket is a no-brainer the next few days. Now let's send it back to the desk with Matt.
Thanks, Tyler. So what we were looking at in that 7-day, the next few days, in my opinion, are going to be raw. That's what I would call it.
I like that word.
Raw.
Like when you use that first, raw is about as
40 degrees and raining is just absolutely disgusting in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm right there with you. But if you like the cool weather, you're from the north, this is the time for you because Saturday and Sunday are actually going to be pretty nice. Cold and chilly in the morning.
Yeah, cold and we will monitor if there will be any flakes down here. I don't know if that's going to happen. But I'm looking at North Georgia also in terms of accumulating snow for Friday afternoon into Friday evening. But look at those lows in the 30s for the next few days.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some areas get their first freeze of the season here in Tallahassee.
Yes, so follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/FSU Weather.
And we got facebook.com/FSU Weather as well. We're all over the place. And we're on YouTube. We're live on YouTube right now. Yep. So follow us all over. Oh, and Instagram too. If you see any accumulating snow, pellets, flurries, whatever you want to call it, send them to us.
I know there was sleet this morning in the Atlanta metro area. So if you're up in the Atlanta area for the next few days, maybe it would be a nice job to send some pics on our Instagram.
Yeah, but if you're not and you're here in the local, get ready for finals, we'd like to see what you're experiencing too. We'll be here the next day and the day after.
We'll be here all week. So for all of us here at FSU Weather, I'm student meteorologist Michael Annan.
And I'm Matt Reagan. We will see you tomorrow, same time, same place.